I, 28F, always believed that family was supposed to be a safe harbor, a place you could turn to when the world became too much. I thought it was a bond built on trust, on mutual support, on an unspoken promise to catch each other when we fall. My sister Amanda seemed to believe family was a safety net designed exclusively for her, a resource to be used, drained, and then discarded when it became inconvenient. I learned this lesson on a Friday evening that started with the shrill ring of my phone and ended with the quiet, bewildered breathing of four children sleeping on my living room floor. The call came just as I was settling in for a rare, peaceful night alone. I had a glass of wine poured, a new book waiting, and the silence of my small one-bedroom apartment was a comforting blanket. It was the kind of quiet you can only truly appreciate when you live alone, the kind of quiet Amanda had not known in a decade. "Chloe, thank God you answered," she said, her voice a frantic whisper, laced with a familiar manufactured panic. I sat up, my moment of peace instantly shattered. "Amanda, what is it? What's wrong?" "I'm in a huge bind, Chloe, a massive one. I need a favor. A really, really big one." I could already feel the familiar dread coiling in my stomach. Amanda's favors were never small. They were life-altering incursions, disruptions that she would dismiss as minor inconveniences for me, but which were, in fact, earthquakes to my carefully structured life. "What kind of favor?" I asked, my voice cautious. "I need you to take the kids," she blurted out. "Just for the weekend, I swear. Just until Sunday night." I squeezed my eyes shut. 4 children. Her children were 10, 8, 5, and 3. My apartment was a meticulously organized space designed for one person. It had one bed, one small sofa, and a distinct lack of anything resembling a toy. "Amanda, I can't. You know my place is tiny. There is no room here for 4 kids." "Please, Chloe. You don't understand. It's an emergency," she sobbed, and the practiced sound of her tears made my teeth ache. She was always in the middle of an emergency. Her life was a 5-alarm fire of her own making, and she was always looking for someone else to hand the extinguisher to. "What kind of emergency?" I pressed, trying to get a straight answer, a fool's errand I never seemed to learn from. "It's Mark," she said, naming her perpetually unreliable, on-again, off-again boyfriend. "It's bad. Really bad. I have to go deal with something. I can't have the kids around for it. Please, it's just 2 nights. I'll pick them up Sunday evening, I promise." Against my better judgment, against every instinct screaming at me to say no, a wave of familial obligation washed over me. She was my sister. They were my nieces and nephews. Even if she was a master of manipulation, the children were innocent. "Fine," I sighed, the word tasting like defeat. "Fine, Amanda. But Sunday. You have to be back on Sunday." "I will be, I swear it. You're a lifesaver, Chloe. You have no idea," she said, her voice suddenly bright and relieved. The tears had vanished as quickly as they had come. An hour later, her car screeched to a halt outside my building. She herded the 4 kids out of the car and up the stairs. Each child carried a small, flimsy duffel bag. Leo, the oldest at 10, looked at me with solemn, knowing eyes. Maya, who was 8, clung to his hand. The 2 little ones, 5-year-old Ben and 3-year-old Lily, just looked tired and confused. Amanda gave me a hug that felt more like a collision. She smelled of cheap perfume and desperation. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said, already backing away toward the door. "Be good for your aunt," she called over her shoulder to the children. Then she was gone. The sound of her car speeding away echoed in the quiet street. I closed the door and turned to face the 4 small, silent people standing in my living room. The silence I had cherished just an hour ago was gone, replaced by a new, heavy silence, filled with uncertainty. My apartment, my sanctuary, suddenly felt like a crowded lifeboat, and I was the only one at the oars. I looked at their 4 small faces, and a deep, sinking feeling told me this was no 2-day storm. This was the beginning of a hurricane. The first night was pure chaos. My single sofa was too small for even two of them, so I pulled every blanket and pillow I owned out of the closet. I created a makeshift nest on the living room floor. None of them had eaten dinner, so I ordered pizzas, something I rarely did. They ate in near silence, picking at the crusts, their eyes darting around my unfamiliar apartment. My home was filled with books, plants, and quiet art. There were no bright colors, no plastic toys, no signs that a child had ever set foot inside. To them, it must have looked like a museum. Ben, the 5-year-old, started crying softly after the pizza boxes were cleared away. He wanted his own bed. He wanted his monster truck pajamas. I looked in his duffel bag. It contained 2 t-shirts, a pair of jeans, and nothing else. There were no pajamas. There were no favorite toys. A cold knot of worry tightened in my chest. Who packs for a weekend without packing pajamas for a 5-year-old? I gave him one of my own soft t-shirts to wear. It swallowed him whole, the hem pooling around his ankles. He sniffled, clutching the soft cotton, and finally allowed Leo to lead him to the pile of blankets on the floor. Maya, ever the little mother, helped me get Lily settled. Lily was too young to understand much, but she understood her mother was gone. She kept asking, "Mommy back soon?" "Yes, sweetie," I said, the lie feeling sticky in my mouth. "Mommy will be back soon." I didn't get to my own bed until after midnight. The sounds from the living room were a constant source of anxiety. Every cough, every rustle, every whimper had me sitting bolt upright. I was not a mother. I was an aunt, the kind who showed up for birthdays and holidays with neatly wrapped presents and left before the meltdowns began. I was not equipped for this. Saturday was a long, grueling day. I tried to create some semblance of fun. I took them to a nearby park. The older two, Leo and Maya, were reserved. They stayed close to me, watching the younger two with a seriousness that didn't belong on children their age. Ben and Lily, freed from the confines of my apartment, ran wild. I spent 2 hours chasing them, my voice hoarse from calling their names. I felt 100 pairs of eyes on me, the other parents with their strollers and their well-stocked diaper bags. I had shown up with 4 children and a single desperate water bottle from my fridge. I felt like an imposter. That afternoon, I tried calling Amanda. Her phone went straight to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just checking in. The kids are fine. Call me back when you get a chance." I tried to convince myself it was nothing. She was dealing with Mark. Maybe her phone died. There were a million logical explanations, but the cold knot in my stomach was still there, a persistent, icy dread. By Sunday morning, the dread had grown into a full-blown panic. I had called Amanda 5 more times. Each call was swallowed by her voicemail. I sent her a text message. "Amanda, what time are you coming to get the kids? They're starting to get anxious." I stared at the phone, waiting for the 3 little dots that would signal a reply. They never appeared. The kids felt the shift in my mood. The apartment was tense. Leo kept looking at me, his expression unreadable. "Is Mom coming today?" he asked, his voice flat. "She is," I said, trying to inject a confidence I did not feel. "She promised." He just nodded and went back to the book I'd given him, but I knew he didn't believe me either. We were both just pretending. Evening came. The sun set. I bathed the kids one by one in my small bathtub. I dressed them in their last clean set of clothes. We ate a simple dinner of pasta. Every car that passed my window made my heart leap. Every footstep in the hallway made me hold my breath. But none of them were her. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. The little ones had fallen into an exhausted sleep on the floor. Leo and Maya were pretending to be asleep, their breathing too even, too controlled. My apartment was quiet again, but this time the silence was terrifying. It was the silence of abandonment. At 11, I gave up pretending. I knew she wasn't coming. The promise was broken. The emergency was a lie. I sat on my sofa, the one that was supposed to be my haven, and looked at the 4 sleeping children who had been deposited into my life. My heart ached for them, and a cold, hard anger began to form, directed at my sister, the one who had used them, and me, as props in her escape. I picked up my phone one last time, my thumb hovering over her name. I didn't call. Instead, I opened my laptop. My hands were shaking. I had a shared family account for photo storage. And sometimes Amanda would accidentally forward emails there instead of to her personal address. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I logged in. I scrolled through pictures of birthdays and holidays. And then I saw it. An email that didn't belong. It was from an airline. The subject line was simple: "Your flight confirmation." My blood ran cold. I clicked on it. The email opened and the truth was laid bare in stark digital print. It was a confirmation for a one-way ticket, from our city to a city halfway across the country. The flight had departed on Friday evening, less than 2 hours after she had dropped the children at my door. I felt the air leave my lungs. This wasn't a last-minute emergency. This was a meticulously planned escape. She had packed her bags, bought her ticket, and then she had lied to my face. She had used me as a dumping ground for the family she had decided to throw away. As if that wasn't enough, I saw another email just below it, one I hadn't noticed before. It was from her, sent to an address I didn't recognize. But she had, in her haste, copied the shared family account. The subject line was "A New Start." I opened it. The message was short, devoid of the emotion she had so expertly performed on the phone. "I can't do this anymore." It read, "I'm gone. The kids are with Chloe. She's better at this stuff anyway. They're better off with her. Don't try to find me. Don't contact me. I need to start over." I read the words again and again. She's better at this stuff anyway. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. It wasn't a cry for help. It was a justification. A cold, calculated offloading of her responsibilities onto me, framed as if she were doing us all a favor. The betrayal was so profound, so complete, that for a long moment I couldn't feel anything at all. I was just numb. Then, the numbness gave way to a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. It was a rage so hot and so fierce it felt like it could burn my house down. She had not just left her children. She had abandoned them. She had orchestrated it, lied about it, and then tried to paint me as the willing, capable solution to her problem. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the empty street. She was gone. Really and truly gone. And I was here, in my tiny apartment, with 4 children who were now, for all intents and purposes, mine. The life I had built, my peace, my career, my future. It had all been stolen from me in a single weekend. The hurricane had made landfall, and it had destroyed everything. And as I stood there in the dark, I made a new promise, a promise to myself. She would not get away with this. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I would find a way to make her face what she had done. The game was on, and I was going to learn the rules, fast. The next morning, the reality of my new situation hit me with the force of a physical blow. I woke up on the sofa. Having given my bed to Maya and Lily, my back ached, and my mind was a fog of anger and exhaustion. The first thing I had to do was call my boss. "Jessica," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Something has come up. A family emergency. I won't be able to come in today." "Is everything okay, Chloe?" she asked, concern in her voice. "I'm not sure yet," I admitted. "My sister, she had to leave town unexpectedly, and her kids are with me." "Her kids? All 4 of them?" "Yes," I said, the word feeling heavy. "All 4. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Okay," she said slowly. "Take the day. Keep me updated. Let me know if you need anything." I thanked her and hung up, but I knew this was just the beginning. The huge project I was leading at work suddenly felt like a distant memory from another life. My career, which I had worked so hard to build, was now in jeopardy. My next call was to our mother. I still held a sliver of hope that she would be as outraged as I was, that she would offer help, that we could face this together. That hope died within the first 30 seconds of the conversation. "Mom," I said, my voice tight, "Amanda's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" she asked, her tone already defensive. "I mean, she flew to another state on Friday night. She left the kids with me. She's not coming back," I said, my voice rising with every word. There was a long silence. It was a guilty silence. "Oh, honey," she finally said, her voice dripping with a false, placating sympathy. "I'm sure it's not as bad as all that. Amanda has just been so stressed lately. She's been at her breaking point. She just needs a little break." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew she was planning to leave." "Knew is a strong word," she said, backpedaling. "She mentioned she was thinking about making some changes. She said she was overwhelmed. I told her you would understand. You're so good, Chloe, so reliable." The praise felt like an insult. I wasn't being reliable. I was being used. And my own mother had helped tie the knot. "She abandoned her children, Mom. She lied to me and she abandoned them on my doorstep. And you encouraged her?" "I did not encourage her," she snapped, her voice turning sharp. "I just listened. She's my daughter, too. She's been struggling for years. You have a good job, a stable life. It's not so easy for her. Family is supposed to help each other out. This is your time to step up." I felt a cold, bitter laugh escape my lips. "Step up? Mom, she blew up my entire life. I live in a one-bedroom apartment. I have a demanding job. I don't have the space, the money, or the time for 4 children. What was I supposed to do?" "You'll figure it out," she said with an infuriating wave of her hand that I could practically hear through the phone. "You always do. Now, I have to go. Just let me know how the kids are doing." She hung up before I could say another word. I stood in my kitchen, phone in hand, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. My sister had betrayed me, and my mother had sanctioned it. They had conspired, whether explicitly or not, to make me the solution to Amanda's problem. They had decided my life was disposable. The rest of the day was a blur of logistics. I had to go to the grocery store. My fridge, usually stocked with food for one, was nearly bare. Pushing a cart through the aisles with 4 kids in tow was a special kind of nightmare. Ben wanted the sugary cereal. Maya wanted the expensive organic snacks. Leo was just silent, a little shadow of responsibility. Lily tried to climb out of the cart twice. I bought bread, milk, eggs, peanut butter, and a mountain of other food, my hands shaking as I entered my PIN at the checkout. The total was staggering. It was more than I usually spent on groceries in 2 weeks. When we got back, I sat down with Leo. He was the oldest. He saw more than he let on. I needed to know what he knew. "Leo," I said gently, sitting beside him on the sofa, "can you tell me what your mom told you before you came here?" He shrugged, not looking at me. "She said we were coming to visit you." "Did she say for how long?" He was quiet for a moment, tracing the pattern on a cushion with his finger. "She told me to pack my bag for a long time," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "She said we were going on a long vacation at Aunt Chloe's house." A long vacation. The lie was even more insidious than I had imagined. She hadn't just lied to me. She had lied to her own son, preparing him for the abandonment, framing it as an adventure. "Did she seem sad?" I asked. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were old with a pain no 10-year-old should carry. "She seemed happy," he said. "She was smiling a lot." That single sentence broke something inside me. All my anger, my hurt, my fear, it all coalesced into a single hard point of resolve. Amanda wasn't a victim. She wasn't a struggling mother who had made a desperate choice. She was a selfish coward who had walked away from her responsibilities with a smile on her face, leaving a trail of devastation behind her. Later that evening, after the kids were finally asleep, I went through the duffel bags again. this time with more purpose. I laid out the contents of each bag on my bed. It was a pathetic collection of mismatched clothes. There were no school uniforms, no textbooks, no immunization records, no birth certificates. There was nothing a person would need to actually build a life. It was the bare minimum, just enough to get them out the door. In the bottom of the duffel bag Amanda herself had been carrying, the one she'd left in her haste, I found her wallet. It was mostly empty, but tucked into a side pocket was a folded piece of paper. I carefully unfolded it. It was a letter, an offer of employment from a company in the city she had flown to. The start date was this Monday, today. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the letter in my hand. This was premeditated. She had secured a new job, a new life, and then she had systematically shed her old one. Her children were the last piece of baggage she needed to discard. I thought about my mother's words. "You'll figure it out." She was right. I would figure it out. But it wouldn't be in the way she imagined. I wasn't just going to absorb this. I wasn't going to be the quiet, reliable Chloe who cleaned up everyone else's messes. This time, I was going to make the person responsible pay for the mess they had made. I carefully folded the job offer and put it in a safe place. It was evidence. It was the first piece of my arsenal. My sister had started a war, assuming I would be a passive casualty. She was about to find out how wrong she was. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. My apartment, once a sanctuary of order, became a chaotic mess of toys I'd bought in a desperate attempt to normalize the situation, half-eaten snacks, and laundry. The laundry was endless. It felt like I was constantly loading, washing, and folding clothes for an army. My washing machine, designed for the light use of a single professional, was running almost nonstop. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. Lily, the youngest, had nightmares. She would wake up screaming for her mother. I would stumble out of bed, my heart pounding, and hold her until she fell back asleep, her small body trembling in my arms. Her tears were a constant, painful reminder of what Amanda had done. Each sob felt like a fresh accusation. Work was a disaster. I had to explain to my boss, Jessica, that the family emergency was not a temporary situation. I couldn't focus. I couldn't stay late. I was distracted during meetings, my mind constantly drifting to the 4 children I had left with a hastily hired teenage babysitter from down the hall. My big project, the one that was supposed to lead to a promotion, was slipping through my fingers. I could see the disappointment in Jessica's eyes, even though she tried to be understanding. "Chloe, I get that you're in a tough spot," she said one afternoon, pulling me aside. "But the deadline for the preliminary report is Friday. We can't push it back." "I know," I said, my voice strained. "I'll get it done." I spent the next 3 nights working after the kids were asleep, fueled by coffee and a growing sense of desperation. I was living 2 full-time lives, and I was failing at both of them. My savings, which I had so carefully built up for a down payment on a small house, were hemorrhaging. Daycare for 2 young children and after-school care for the other 2 cost a fortune. Then there was food, clothes, doctor's visits because, of course, Amanda hadn't left any medical information, and Lily had developed a persistent cough. I had to take them all for checkups. The pediatrician's office was another circle of hell. Filling out the paperwork was a nightmare. Mother's name? Father's name? Insurance provider? I had to write unknown in so many boxes that the receptionist looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. I had to pay for the visits and the prescriptions out of pocket. Each swipe of my credit card felt like a victory for Amanda. My best friend, Sarah, was my only lifeline. She would come over after work with groceries or a bottle of wine, and she would just listen as I vented, my voice cracking with exhaustion and rage. "This is insane, Chloe," she said one night, watching me try to scrub crayon marks off my white walls. "You can't keep doing this. You'll burn out, or go broke, or both." "I don't have a choice," I said, scrubbing harder. "They're here. They have nowhere else to go. Mom is useless." "Your mom is worse than useless," Sarah said, her voice sharp with anger on my behalf. "She's an enabler. She's just as guilty as Amanda. She was right. I had tried calling my mother again, hoping for some financial help, or at least a weekend of respite. Her response was a masterclass in guilt and deflection. "Chloe, you know I'm on a fixed income," she'd said. "I can't afford to help you with money, and my back has been acting up. I can't possibly handle 4 children." "You could take them for one afternoon, Mom," I had pleaded, "just so I can have a few hours to breathe." "Oh, I don't know. It's just too much for me," she'd sighed. "You're young. You have the energy. You'll manage. Stop being so dramatic." Stop being so dramatic. The words echoed in my head. I had hung up, my hand trembling. It was clear I was completely on my own. Sarah grabbed the sponge from my hand. "Stop," she said. "We're not going to scrub. We're going to think. We need a plan." We sat at my small kitchen table, which was now covered in children's drawings. "What do you want to happen?" she asked. "I want her to pay," I said, the words coming out as a low growl. "I don't just mean financially. I want her to face what she did. I want her to understand that she can't just throw people away." "Okay," Sarah said, nodding. "Revenge. I like it. But to get revenge, we need leverage. And to get leverage, we need to know more about her new life." This was the turning point. My grief and anger began to sharpen into something more productive. A strategy. Sarah, who worked in marketing and was a wizard at navigating the internet, immediately started digging. Amanda's own social media was a dead end. She had either deleted her accounts or locked them down completely. It was as if she had ceased to exist online. "She's covering her tracks," Sarah muttered, scrolling through page after page of search results. "Smart, but not smart enough." Her next move was to look up Amanda's boyfriend, Mark. His profiles were wide open. He was a classic narcissist, documenting every moment of his life for public consumption. We scrolled through pictures of his car, his meals, his gym workouts. And then we found it. It was a photo posted just a week ago. Mark was grinning at a restaurant, a beer held up to the camera. In the background, slightly out of focus but unmistakably present, was Amanda. She was laughing, her head thrown back, a wine glass in her hand. She looked radiant, carefree, unburdened. Seeing her like that, so happy while I was drowning, sent a fresh wave of fury through me. "That's her," I said, my voice tight. "They're together." "So much for the bad breakup emergency," Sarah said dryly. She didn't run from him. She ran to him. The whole story was a lie. This was a crucial piece of the puzzle. This wasn't a desperate woman escaping a bad situation. This was a couple executing a plan to ditch her past and start fresh. The children were inconvenient baggage, and I was the locker they had stuffed them into. Sarah kept digging. Using the location tag from Mark's photo and the company name from the job offer I had found, she was able to work miracles. Within an hour, she had an address for Amanda's new apartment, and more importantly, a link to her new company's website. The company was called Family First Solutions. My jaw dropped. It was a corporate consulting firm that specialized in promoting healthy work-life balance for modern families. The website was filled with stock photos of smiling parents and happy children. Their mission statement talked about integrity, responsibility, and community. The hypocrisy. I breathed, feeling dizzy. It's unbelievable. "Oh, it gets better," Sarah said, her eyes gleaming. She had found a page introducing the new management team, and there was Amanda's photo. It was a professional headshot, her smile polished and confident. Her title was Regional Outreach Manager. Her bio was a work of fiction. It mentioned her passion for family-centric community building and her dedication to supporting parents in the workplace. There was, of course, no mention of her 4 children. This was it. This was the leverage. Her entire new life, her career, her public image. It was all built on a foundation of lies. A lie that I and 4 innocent children could expose. But Sarah wasn't done. She had a strange look on her face. Chloe, she said slowly, I think I found something else. Something worse. She had been running Amanda's name through blog search engines. Most of the results were old, from years ago when she had briefly tried to be a coupon blogger. But one result was recent. It was a private blog, password protected. The title of the blog was My Brave New Path. How did you get in? I asked. Sarah gave me a wicked little smile. People are lazy with passwords. I tried the kids' birthdays, then her birthday. Then Mark is the one. None of them worked. Then I tried reliable Chloe. My stomach turned. It worked, didn't it? It worked, she confirmed. The blog opened up on the screen. It was a digital diary of her escape. Post after post detailed her agonizing decision. She wrote about how she was drowning in motherhood, how she had given her youth to her children and gotten nothing in return. She painted herself as a tragic heroine, a woman forced to make an impossible choice for her own survival. And then we came to the posts about me. My sister Chloe is a saint, one post read. She has always been so much more maternal than I am. She has a stable life, a big heart, and for years she has told me how much she wished she had children of her own. When I told her I was at my breaking point, she didn't hesitate. She offered to take the kids, to give them the stable home I never could. It broke my heart to say yes, but I knew it was the right thing for them. They need someone like Chloe. I felt the blood drain from my face. She wasn't just lying. She was crafting a narrative, a self-serving, manipulative story where she was the noble, sacrificing mother and I was the eager, childless sister, finally getting the family I had always wanted. She was preemptively defending herself, creating a fiction to absolve herself of all guilt. There's more, Sarah said, her voice grim. She's trying to monetize it. At the bottom of the blog, there was a link to a Patreon account. Support my journey of rediscovery, the page said. People could donate money to help her on her brave new path. She was trying to profit from abandoning her children. I stood up from the table and walked to the window. The rage I felt was no longer hot. It was ice cold. It was calm and clear and absolute. This was no longer just about getting her to pay child support. This was about tearing down the entire facade. She had built a house of cards, and I was going to enjoy pulling out the bottom one and watching it all come crashing down. What are you going to do? Sarah asked, coming to stand beside me. I looked at the reflection in the dark glass. My face was tired and pale, but my eyes were hard. First, I said, my voice steady. I'm going to get a lawyer. Then I'm going to get full custody. And then I'm going to take everything from her. The first step was finding the right lawyer. Sarah helped me search for family law attorneys who offered free consultations. I took a day off work, leaving the kids with the teenage babysitter and a pile of money I couldn't afford, and I went to 3 different offices. The first 2 lawyers were sympathetic but clinical. They talked about filing petitions, serving papers, and the lengthy court process. It all felt very abstract and overwhelming. The third lawyer was different. Her name was Ms. Davis, and she was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s with eyes that seemed to see right through me. I sat in her plush office, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. And I told her everything. I told her about the phone call, the duffel bags, the flight confirmation, the job offer. I told her about my mother's complicity and the financial strain. Finally, I told her about the blog. I had printed out every single post. I pushed the stack of papers across her polished desk. She listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she picked up the blog posts and began to read. She read for a long time, her silence filling the room. I watched her face, looking for any reaction. Finally, she looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. It was a cold, professional fury. She's trying to get ahead of the narrative, Ms. Davis said, her voice crisp. She's building a defense based on lies, assuming you'll be too overwhelmed to fight back effectively. So what can I do? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. We do not engage with her narrative. she said, tapping the papers. We create our own based on facts, and our facts are much, much stronger. She laid out a plan. It was methodical, patient, and ruthless. First, you need to establish a new status quo, she explained. You are now the children's primary caregiver. You will enroll them in school. You will take them to the doctor. You will pay for their expenses. And you will document every single thing. She handed me a notebook. This is your new Bible, she said. Every cent you spend, every meal you cook, every time you have to leave work early, every sleepless night. You write it down. Dates, times, amounts. We are building a case, brick by brick, that demonstrates the totality of the burden she has placed on you. And then what? I asked. Then, she said, a small, grim smile on her face, we use her own weapons against her. We let her believe she is in control. We let her get comfortable in her new life. And then, when the time is right, we make a simple, reasonable request. A request she will be forced to deny. And her denial will be her undoing. I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. It wasn't the flimsy hope that Amanda would come to her senses. It was the cold, hard hope of a well-laid plan. I had an ally. I had a strategy. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was no longer just a victim. I was a strategist in my own war. The following weeks were a strange mix of domestic drudgery and covert operations. I followed Ms. Davis's instructions to the letter. I bought a new, larger notebook and began documenting everything. The cost of new shoes for Leo, the price of Lily's cough syrup, the hours of work I missed to take Maya to a dentist appointment. The pages began to fill up with the mundane, exhausting reality of my new life. Enrolling the kids in school was a bureaucratic nightmare. The school district required birth certificates and immunization records, none of which I had. I had to go to the county records office and file for new copies, a process that took days and required me to sign affidavits swearing to my relationship with the children. The school administrators were suspicious. I was a single woman in her 20s, suddenly appearing with 4 children who weren't my own. I had to explain the situation over and over, carefully editing the story to its barest, most neutral facts. Their mother had to leave town for an extended period. I am their aunt and their current guardian. Each explanation felt like a small humiliation. But I swallowed my pride and pushed through, fueled by Ms. Davis's words. Establish the status quo. I was becoming their de facto parent in the eyes of the world, one form at a time. Meanwhile, Sarah and I continued our online surveillance. Amanda's boyfriend, Mark, remained our primary source of intelligence. He was an endless font of incriminating information. He posted pictures of the new apartment they had decorated, filled with expensive, modern furniture. He posted about the fancy dinners they were having, the weekend trips they were taking. Each post was another brick in the wall of evidence we were building. Each picture of Amanda smiling, carefree and happy, was another drop of fuel on the fire of my resolve. Amanda herself remained a ghost. She never called. She never emailed. She had cut us off completely, secure in her new life, believing she had successfully shed her past. She had no idea that her past was watching her, documenting her every move and patiently waiting. One evening, after the kids were in bed, I was paying bills online. My savings account, once a source of pride and security, was now dangerously low. Panic seized me. I was spending money so fast, I felt like I was bailing out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. I put my head in my hands, the numbers on the screen blurring through my tears. Leo came out of the bedroom. He stood in the doorway watching me. "Are you sad?" he asked. I quickly wiped my eyes. "No, sweetie, just tired." He came over and stood beside my chair. He was holding the notebook Ms. Davis had given me. It was open to a page where I had listed the costs of their school supplies. "Is this because of us?" he asked, his voice small. "Do we cost too much?" My heart broke. I pulled him into a hug, holding him tight. "No," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Never. You are not a cost." You're the most important thing in the world. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. He hugged me back, his small arms wrapping around my neck. In that moment, my mission became even clearer. This wasn't just about revenge against Amanda anymore. It was about protecting these children. It was about giving them the security and stability their own mother had stolen from them. It was about making sure they never, ever had to feel like they were a burden. I knew then that I couldn't just win. I had to win completely. I had to secure their future. And to do that, I had to dismantle Amanda's. After 2 months of meticulous record-keeping and patient waiting, Ms. Davis decided it was time to make our first move. The plan was subtle, designed to be non-confrontational on the surface, but a clear signal that we knew where Amanda was and that we were not going away. "We are not going to demand money," Ms. Davis instructed me over the phone. "We are not going to threaten her. We are going to make a simple administrative request, something a responsible parent would comply with immediately." Following her script, I composed a formal letter. I printed it on plain paper and put it in a business envelope. I sent it via registered mail to Amanda's office address at Family First Solutions. Sending it to her workplace was a deliberate choice. It was a quiet show of power, a way of saying, "I know where you are. I know what you're pretending to be." The letter was short and to the point. "Dear Amanda," it began, "I hope you are well. I have enrolled the children in school and have scheduled their annual medical checkups. To complete their registration and medical files, I require their original birth certificates and their health insurance cards. Please forward these documents to my address at your earliest convenience. Thank you, Chloe." I dropped the letter in the mail and felt a nervous thrill. The first shot had been fired. Now we waited for her reaction. For 3 days, there was nothing. My anxiety grew with each passing hour. Did she get the letter? Was she ignoring it? Was she planning a countermove? I checked my email a dozen times a day. On the 4th day, a reply came. It wasn't a letter. It was a curt email sent from her new corporate email address. The subject line was simply, "Documents." "Chloe," the email read, "attached you will find scanned copies of the birth certificates. The children are no longer on my health insurance policy. You will need to arrange for new coverage for them. This is the only communication you will receive from me. Do not contact me at my place of work again." I stared at the screen, a slow, cold anger building inside me. She had removed her own children from her health insurance. It was another act of calculated abandonment, another tie severed. And the tone of her email? It was the dismissive, arrogant tone of someone who believed they held all the cards. She thought this was over. She thought she could just email some PDFs and I would disappear. I immediately forwarded the email to Ms. Davis. Her reply came within minutes. "Perfect," it said. "This is exactly what we wanted. She has denied a reasonable request for the physical insurance cards and admitted in writing that she has cut off their medical coverage. She is creating a paper trail of neglect. Now, we wait 2 more weeks and then we make our next move." The next 2 weeks were agonizing. I had to purchase a private health insurance plan for the 4 children. The monthly premium was astronomical. It was another huge financial blow, another entry in my ever-growing notebook of expenses. But I knew it was also another piece of ammunition. During this time, I focused on creating a real home for the kids. With Sarah's help, I rearranged my apartment. We bought a bunk bed and a trundle bed, cramming them into my single bedroom. I slept on a new, slightly more comfortable pull-out sofa in the living room. The apartment was crowded and chaotic, but it was starting to feel less like a temporary shelter and more like a home. The kids were slowly coming out of their shells. Maya started drawing again, taping her colorful pictures all over the refrigerator. Ben learned to write his name. Lily's nightmares became less frequent. Leo remained the most watchful. He saw the toll this was taking on me. He saw the worried lines on my face when I paid bills. He saw the exhaustion in my eyes at the end of the day. One night, he came to me while I was sitting at the kitchen table, the infamous notebook open in front of me. "Are you going to send us away?" he asked, his voice so quiet I could barely hear him. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at his serious, worried face and felt a fierce, protective love surge through me. "No, Leo," I said, my voice firm. "Never. This is your home now. I am not going anywhere, and neither are you." He seemed to mull this over for a moment. Then he nodded, a small, almost imperceptible dip of his chin. "Good," he said, and for the first time I saw a flicker of a genuine smile on his face. In that moment, I knew that whatever happened with Amanda, I had already won the only thing that truly mattered. These children were mine now, in my heart, and I would fight for them until my last breath. Finally, the 2 weeks were up. It was time for the next phase of the plan. Ms. Davis was clear in her instructions. "Now we introduce the issue of money," she said, "but we do it in the most boring, bureaucratic way possible. We are not an angry sister demanding help. We are an administrator submitting invoices for services rendered." I spent an entire evening at my computer, compiling everything. I scanned every receipt from my notebook. The groceries, the clothes, the doctor's visits, the bunk beds, the first month's health insurance premium. I created a detailed spreadsheet, itemizing every single cost I had incurred since the day Amanda had dropped the children off. The final number was shocking, even to me. Then I drafted another email. I kept the tone as neutral and professional as I could manage. Subject: reimbursement of child-related expenses and ongoing support. "Dear Amanda," I wrote, "following up on our previous correspondence, I have now fully enrolled the children in school and secured medical coverage for them. Attached, you will find an itemized list of the initial setup costs I have incurred on their behalf, totaling $7,232.18. Please remit payment at your earliest convenience. Furthermore, the ongoing monthly costs for their care, including daycare, after-school programs, food, and health insurance, are approximately $3,800 per month. As their legal parent, you are responsible for providing financial support. Please let me know how you would like to arrange for these monthly payments to be made. I have attached copies of all relevant invoices and receipts for your records. Sincerely, Chloe." I read the email over and over, making sure there was not a single trace of anger or emotion in it. It was cold, factual, and undeniable. It was a bill. I attached the spreadsheet and the folder of scanned receipts. My finger hovered over the send button. This was the moment of escalation. There was no going back after this. I took a deep breath and clicked. The response did not take 4 days. It came in less than an hour. My phone rang and Amanda's name flashed on the screen. It was the first time she had called me since that first frantic night. My heart hammered against my ribs. I looked at the phone, took a deep breath to steady my nerves, and answered. I put the phone on speaker, just as Ms. Davis had instructed. "What is this?" Amanda shrieked, her voice shrill and furious. There was no greeting, no preamble, just pure rage. I kept my voice calm and low. "Hello, Amanda. I assume you received my email?" "My email? You send me a bill for over $7,000. Are you insane?" she yelled. "I sent you an itemized list of the expenses I have covered for your children," I replied, my voice even. "My children? You're acting like you're some kind of martyr. I left them with you because you're family. You're supposed to help." "This is beyond help, Amanda," I said, my calmness seeming to infuriate her even more. "This is full-time care. It costs money. A lot of money. Money that I do not have." "You have a good job. I know you have savings," she shot back. "You're just trying to ruin me." "I'm just getting back on my feet. I don't have that kind of money." I felt a flash of my own anger, hot and sharp, but I pushed it down. I would not let her draw me into a screaming match. I had the upper hand, and I was going to keep it. "According to Mark's social media, you seem to be doing just fine," I said, the words dropping like stones into the conversation. "New apartment, fancy dinners. You also have a new job as a manager. A job at a company that values family, I believe?" There was a sudden, sharp silence on the other end of the line. I had let her know that I knew more than she thought. The balance of power had just visibly shifted. "You're stalking me?" She finally sputtered, her voice a mixture of shock and fear. "I'm not stalking you, Amanda," I said, my voice like ice. "I'm simply being thorough. You created this situation. I am just dealing with the consequences. One of those consequences is that raising 4 children is expensive. I need you to contribute." "I can't," she cried, the anger now replaced by a desperate panic. "You don't understand. If I start sending you money, it creates a trail. It's a legal thing. I can't do it." "Then what do you suggest I do?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Should I just let my savings run out? Should I get evicted because I can't afford my rent anymore? Should I pull the kids out of daycare and lose my job? What is your solution, Amanda?" "I don't know," she wailed. "I thought you wanted them. You always said you were lonely." The lie was so audacious, so shameless, that it almost made me laugh. This was the narrative from her blog, her carefully constructed fantasy world. She was trying to use it on me. "Don't you dare," I said. And for the first time, the ice in my voice cracked, revealing the furnace of rage beneath it. "Do not lie to me. You and I both know that is not true. You used me. You dumped your children on me so you could run off and start a new, unencumbered life with your boyfriend." "It's not like that," she sobbed. "Then what is it like, Amanda?" I pressed. "Tell me. I'm very interested to hear the version of the story you've been telling yourself." I paused, letting the silence stretch. Then I delivered the blow I had been waiting weeks to land. "I've been reading your blog, by the way," I said, my voice conversational again. "The Brave New Path one. It's quite a story. The part about me being the eager maternal sister who offered to take the kids, that's very creative. I have to wonder, Amanda, what would your new bosses at Family First Solutions think about that blog? What would they think about the real story? The one with the flight confirmations and the abandoned health insurance policies? The one where their new regional outreach manager for family-centric community building literally abandoned her own family?" The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. It was the silence of a cornered animal. It was the silence of total and complete defeat. I could hear her ragged breathing. She knew she was caught. The house of cards was starting to tremble. "You wouldn't," she finally whispered, her voice hoarse with disbelief and terror. "You're my sister. You wouldn't ruin my life." I felt a cold, grim satisfaction wash over me. It wasn't joy. It was the feeling of justice, long delayed, finally beginning to turn its wheels. "You left me with 4 children and an empty bank account. Amanda," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "You tried to ruin my life for your own convenience. You don't get to talk to me about what sisters do and do not do. You gave up that right." "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small and broken. The fight was gone. All that was left was fear. "I'm glad you asked," I said, switching back into the calm, controlled voice Ms. Davis had coached me to use. "You have 2 options. Option 1, you sign over full, sole legal custody of the children to me. No visitation, no contact unless I approve it. And you will agree to a child support order, a legal, binding, enforceable order. The amount will be determined by the court based on your income, and it will be substantial. It will be garnished from your wages if necessary." "And option 2? She choked out. "Option 2, I said, letting the words hang in the air, "is that I take my notebook of expenses, my copies of your flight confirmation, your job offer, and every single post from your pathetic self-serving blog, and I send them to the head of human resources at Family First Solutions. I will also send them to every parenting blogger and local news outlet in your new city. I will post them online. I will create a website. I will tell the entire world the truth about you. And we will see how long your brave new path lasts after that." I let the threat settle. It was a brutal, ugly threat, but it was a mirror of the brutal, ugly things she had done to me and to her children. "You have 24 hours to have your lawyer contact my lawyer," I said, my voice final. Her name is Ms. Davis. I'm sending you her contact information right now. If I do not hear from your lawyer by 5 o'clock tomorrow, I will assume you have chosen option 2. And with that, I hung up the phone. I stood there in the quiet of my living room, my hand trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer adrenaline of the confrontation. The first major battle was over, and I had won. The aftermath of that phone call was swift and decisive. Amanda crumbled completely. Less than 3 hours later, I received an email from Ms. Davis. We've been contacted by an attorney on behalf of your sister. It read, she wishes to discuss the terms of a custody and support agreement. Congratulations, Chloe. You did it. The relief was so immense, I felt my knees go weak. I sank onto my sofa, the one that now served as my bed, and for the first time in months, I cried. But these were not tears of anger or exhaustion. They were tears of release. The weight that had been crushing me, the constant fear and uncertainty, had finally begun to lift. The legal process moved with surprising speed. Amanda, terrified of exposure, offered no resistance. Her lawyer was clearly advising her to capitulate on every point to avoid me exercising option 2. Ms. Davis was a shark. She negotiated a custody agreement that gave me everything I wanted: full legal and physical custody. Amanda was stripped of all parental rights. The agreement stipulated that any potential future contact would be at my sole discretion. The child support negotiations were even more satisfying. Ms. Davis, armed with the evidence of Amanda's new job and Mark's revealing social media posts, argued for a support amount that was far higher than the standard guidelines. Amanda's lawyer protested weakly, but when Ms. Davis casually mentioned the significant public relations risk her client was facing, the protest stopped. The final agreement was signed. A court order was issued. The child support payments would be automatically garnished from Amanda's paycheck each month. The amount was substantial. It was enough to cover all the kids' expenses, the cost of a larger apartment, and even enough for me to start rebuilding my depleted savings. It was, as Ms. Davis put it, a complete and total victory. The first payment arrived in my bank account 2 weeks later. Seeing that money, a direct consequence of Amanda's actions, felt like a profound form of justice. It wasn't just money. It was accountability made tangible. That same week, I found a 3-bedroom apartment in a building much closer to the kids' school. It was in a family-friendly neighborhood with a park right across the street. The day we moved in was a celebration. The kids ran through the empty rooms, their shouts of joy echoing off the walls. For the first time, they would each have a proper bed. Leo and Ben would share a room, and Maya and Lily would share another. I had my own room again, a small, simple space that felt like the most luxurious suite in the world. As we unpacked, I felt a sense of peace settle over me for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. My life was no longer the one I had planned, but it was a life I was starting to love. It was noisy and chaotic and messy, but it was also filled with laughter and hugs and crayon drawings on the fridge. Of course, not every loose end was tied up so neatly. My mother called me the day after the custody agreement was finalized. She was hysterical. "How could you do this to your sister?" she cried into the phone. "You've taken her children. You've ruined her financially. She's your family." I listened to her tirade, my heart cold and heavy. The old feelings of guilt and obligation were gone, replaced by a weary disappointment. "Mom," I said, my voice flat. Amanda gave up her children the moment she put them in a car and drove away. I just made it legal. And as for ruining her financially, she is now simply paying for the responsibilities she tried to run away from. It's called being an adult. "You've become so hard, Chloe," she sniffled. "I don't even know who you are anymore." "I know exactly who I am," I replied. "I'm the person who stayed. I'm the person who stepped up when you and she decided it was easier to run away. I am a mother now, and my priority is my children, not Amanda's feelings." "They are not your children," she shrieked. "The state of New York disagrees," I said calmly. "I have to go now. The kids need dinner." I ended the call and blocked her number. I knew the relationship was broken, perhaps irreparably. She had chosen her side. She had chosen the daughter who had abandoned her family over the one who had held it together. It was a painful realization, but also a liberating one. I was no longer bound by her expectations or her guilt. Life began to find a new rhythm. With the child support payments, I was able to cut back my hours at work slightly, moving to a 4-day work week that allowed me to be more present for the kids. Jessica, my boss, was incredibly supportive once she understood the full situation. The promotion I thought I had lost was put back on the table. Sarah remained my rock. She helped me paint the kids' new rooms and spent weekends taking them on adventures, giving me a much-needed break. "Look at you," she said one afternoon as we watched the kids play in the park from my new living room window. "You're a natural at this." "I'm just making it up as I go," I admitted with a smile. "That's what all parents do," she said. "The only difference is you chose this. You fought for it." She was right. I hadn't asked for this life, but I had fought to make it work. I had fought for these children. And in doing so, I had discovered a strength in myself I never knew I possessed. Months passed. The seasons changed. The kids were thriving. Leo joined the school soccer team. Maya discovered a love for painting. Ben learned to read. And Lily started calling me Mama. The first time she did it, my heart swelled so much I thought it might burst. One day, a letter arrived in the mail. It was addressed to me in Amanda's familiar, looping handwriting. My hand trembled slightly as I opened it. The letter was long and rambling, filled with self-pity and blame. Her new life had imploded. An anonymous tip had been sent to her boss at Family First Solutions. The tip had included links to her blog and a brief factual account of her child abandonment. She was fired immediately. The company couldn't risk the scandal. Without her job, the glamour of their new life faded quickly. Mark, it turned out, was not interested in supporting a jobless girlfriend with massive child support obligations. He had kicked her out. She was now living in a cheap motel, broke and alone. "I have nothing," she wrote. "You took everything from me. You took my children, my job, my future. I'm your sister. How could you be so cruel?" The letter ended with a desperate, pathetic plea. "I want to see my kids," she wrote. "I have a right to see them." I read the letter twice, feeling nothing but a distant, cold pity. She still didn't get it. She still saw herself as the victim. She believed she had a right to the children she had thrown away like trash. I took out a piece of paper and a pen. I thought about all the things I could say. I could tell her about the nightmares, the doctor's bills, the fear in Leo's eyes. I could tell her how much pain she had caused, how much she had broken. But I didn't. None of it would matter. She was incapable of understanding. Instead, I wrote a single word on the paper. No. I folded the paper, put it in an envelope, and mailed it back to her. I walked back into my living room. The kids were arguing over a video game, their laughter and shouts filling the apartment. Leo looked up and saw me. "Everything okay?" he asked, his brow furrowed with a familiar, protective concern. I smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Everything is perfect," I said. I looked at these 4 beautiful, resilient, wonderful children. My children. She hadn't given them to me. I had taken them. I had rescued them from her chaos and selfishness. And in saving them, I had found a new version of myself. A stronger, fiercer, and happier version. Amanda had tried to make me a casualty of her selfish escape, but instead she had made me a mother. She had lost everything, and I had gained a family. It was a brutal, perfect irony. And as I watched my children play, I knew with absolute certainty that I would never, ever let them go. They were home. And so was I.